Welcome to the Underground Warriors podcast, where we explore human potential and learn from everyday heroes who have risen to life's challenges, conquered their fear, and are impacting the world in positive ways. I'm your host, Jon Christian. Hello, and welcome back to the Underground Warriors podcast, where we go beyond the surface and dive deep into the inner battles and breakthroughs and look at the truth of what shapes us. My name is Jon Christian. Today we have an absolutely amazing guest, someone who is inside Zerkers Academy as an impact-driven entrepreneur. And so Michael Padurano is more than a guide. He's a living embodiment of radical self-awareness and transformation, a man who has walked through extremes and emerged with balance, purpose, and unwavering commitment to elevate humanity. He doesn't label himself as a coach. He's a guide who helps others find their own answers by sharing his vulnerability unapologetically and in truth. So welcome, Michael, to the Underground Warriors podcast. And we'd love to hear a little bit about your background and unique story of some of the challenges you faced over the years and what you're up to in the world.
Thank you, Jon. I'm honored to be here. I truly am. Anytime I feel like we get to share our authentic story, it gives us an opportunity to impact as many as possible, right? Because I feel like that's what the world is missing, is authentic storytelling from their personal experience, because that is how we break down boundaries and create relatability, empathy, and understanding, is by sharing our genuine, authentic journey. How far back do you want me to go? I'm an open book, so you guide this and I'll run with it. Do I go all the way back?
Well, we could talk a little bit about vulnerability. There's a certain point that, because that's something I can relate to as well, is having that vulnerability conversation of being open and to the point, and I can even go back a little bit where I began in the banking industry, where I protected myself so much. I had like two profiles, on social media. One was Kit and one was Jon Christian. And people that knew me best knew me by Kit, and the people that, my business professional side. So there's a moment in time, I believe, that everybody goes through where they step in their true authentic self. So maybe go back to the time of like when maybe you were struggling to find that authenticity, and then, that moment that everything shifted.
The first 41 years of my life. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Until I went to Arkansas to go fight for custody of my kids because they were being abused by their mother and got stranded out there for 19 months during COVID. I went out there to save them, and I had to save myself by accident to survive that time of being stranded out there, 1,300 miles from home, alone with my three kids that were all coming out of this trauma cycle. I was forced to face my own trauma. I was forced to face myself. I worked with 35 to 45 coaches, 7 shamans, 2 priests, and a rabbi. I accumulated a ton of knowledge. I found audiobooks and went through 40 to 60 audiobooks and just started healing and went into the deepest healing I could ever imagine. I pretty much cried for 6 months straight. I journaled daily, hourly. It was ridiculous. I went through, I want to say 10 5-subject notebooks, maybe 15, of just, pretty much writing till my hands bled. It was insane, but I had so much to get out. And what I learned through that is you really need to rewrite your subconscious. And the only way to do that was through different types of exercises and different ways of journaling, and really be diligent about investing time, energy, and space into yourself. Because if you spend 40 years of your life loathing and hating yourself, which I did, then the concept of inner peace, the concept of self-love was not even something I could understand, remotely understand, or even believe was attainable, truthfully. Because I've been a millionaire 5 times and homeless 6 times now. So it's like I've had all the physical and all that crap in this world, and it never did anything for me. It made me more miserable in the end.
Yeah.
So it was going on that deep journey of self-discovery right? I call spirituality the journey of self-understanding. And this is after my stroke. This is one of my favorite sweatshirts. It's if it cost me my piece, it's too expensive, right? Or if it costs you your piece, it's too expensive. I don't remember what it says. Mine or no, it says here, but it's one of my favorite ones, right? And I also bought a Gary V Grateful sweatshirt because, which is the most expensive piece of clothing I own today, because I don't buy designer anything, right? Like I'm a solo parent to 3 kids, and it's all about them. Um, it's, the journey is multi-phased, most multi-approached. I mean, I got sober in 2006. I've been sober since, from substances. Found other addictions to escape from businesses, sex, gambling, strip clubs, any distraction I could find, right? Even zoning out on TV shows and just disappearing from the world. Like, I mean, you can get addicted to anything. Anything becomes an escapism. There was a while there that I exercised and got really healthy, and that became an escapism because I wasn't doing it with the right intent. I wasn't doing it to get healthy. I was doing it to avoid myself. I was doing everything to avoid dealing with my emotions. So at the end of the day, we are a trinity of mind, body, and soul. We are full entity, multifaceted, multidimensional beings, spiritual beings living a human experience. So if we don't embody all the facets, then the self-love isn't full, right? We have to love the grimiest, dirtiest parts of ourselves that used to disgust us about ourselves, and love those pieces just as much, if not more, than we love our greatest attributes and qualities from the external world perspective. And then we also need to realize that the world is a house of cards. Because it's all perspective based. Like, that's all it is. It's your perspective and my perspective and 8.2 billion perspectives, and they're all true to each individual. But for some reason, we like to compare perspectives, and there is no comparison because no one's lived my life. I've never lived your life, right? No one's ever lived anyone's life. So we're all just throwing perspectives at each other, and we don't understand why we don't understand each other because we're not taking the time to understand. We're just trying to be louder than the person next to us. I don't know if that answered the question. I know that went a bunch of different directions, but I think the answer was there somewhere.
Oh yeah, there is a few different rabbit holes that was hearing in my mind of different places that there's a lot of wisdom in what you said, and I hope people that listening can actually hear what's being said because there's experiential information that you're sharing that sometimes unless you've actually experienced it, you can't really absorb it. So the one thing that you said was about the subconscious and how that drives a lot of our behavior, things and addiction, and we get what we want even if it's not what we think we want on the surface. There's a question I ask my clients a lot of times is, they say, well, this is what's happening. I'm like, well, how is your better life better off as a result of that happening? And it could be this horrible thing, and for some reason underneath everything, there's something that is they're benefiting from, even if it's a self sabotaging behavior and things like that. So
It's feeding something.
right. And the more awareness, like you said, perspective that we can have in our lives to see those things, the more power we claim back. I think a big challenge that people have is, giving away their power to certain situations, things that come up, people. It's like, oh, that person pissed me off, or this situation is causing me these issues. It's really all within ourselves and our reality. Many times, unless somebody is actually physically causing harm, like physical harm, or you know, uh, that is a different story. But for the majority of things that we're working through, it's that internal conversation and that internal battle, um, that we have with each other.
S- So if I can add on to what you just said, I can testify to the fact that while at 3 to 5 years old to 8 years old to 9 years old to 12 years old, when I was being physically abused by my mother, it might not have been on the surface what I wanted in any way, shape, or form, but I spent a lot of time instigating it, a lot of time antagonizing it, because that's what I believe love was.
Mhm.
So even the physical harm on a level, If you believe that's what you deserve, if you believe that's what you know, what you're worth, then on a subconscious level, you are instigating it and bringing it up. And the reason I say it that way, right? And it sounds really harsh, but this is one of the harshest things I had to learn. We deserve what we allow. So, and I know that's harsh, but coming from the abuse I went through, all the different traumatic situations that I've grown through in my life, if I didn't allow them, then I wouldn't have deserved it. Right? There's a different at some point I gave up on myself, or at some point my subconscious believed in certain things that weren't perspective wise in a reality.
Mhm.
And that created the foundation for me to live the life the way I did.
Yeah, and it's also a way for people to be in control, you know? So
100%.
it's actually a way to control the situation as you're creating this situation for yourself, even if it's a negative. So you're subconsciously in control, but you're having this horrible experience externally. Um, yeah, so that I think human beings are so complex. There's so many different layers of us between our beliefs, our emotions, our actions, thoughts, neural pathways, chemicals, and that's why I'm so passionate about human performance and optimizing it and helping the people to create this life that they desire, not from the place of creating from scarcity, but really conscious based creation, like versus getting away from something, moving towards something. It sounds like that's the way you've started to create your life moving forward, and a lot of decisions that you make. I think one thing that we talked about in the past is some people don't understand the way you're living your life, right? So maybe talk about that because there's a lot of times when we follow our heart, but there's this unspoken or even spoken rule of existence in our society, and overcoming that fear and taking the leap of faith into that unknown, regardless of, what everybody else is
So,
telling you.
so I think the freedom came from my major stroke that I had in November 16th of 2022. It was a triple major stroke. 86% chance I'd be a vegetable for the rest of my life. I was half paralyzed for the first 6 weeks. Um, my whole left side of my body. So texting, talking, my face was droopy, everything. Had to relearn it all. Not to mention the mental capacity, which took me over a year to regain fully. And I'm blessed in God. It's a miracle that I did regain it all, right? Because so many don't. So it was this whole relearning process. And the funny part is, up until that point in my life, I always thought my brain was what made me special. Every time I've looked at God and I said, this is what makes me special, my higher power has a way of saying, okay, well, let's take it away. And let's prove to you that's not what makes you special. So one of the major gifts that came from the stroke, I've had many gifts. The greatest gift, I think, is the release of all attachments. I'm not attached to anything, not attached to people, places, things, not attached to my kids' lives. Their lives are their own. I'm here to guide them on their journey. They are with me. I am while with me. I want them to grow and learn from pain. I want them to be able to heal through it and grow forward. I label it growing forward because I don't believe there's any sedentary state in life. You're either being unaware, or you're being self-aware and you're growing through life. And I think there's phases to self-awareness. There's phases to self-love because I went from self-loathing, self-hatred to in August of 2020 saying I love me for the first time in my whole life at 41 years old. To then August of 21 saying I'm in love with myself, ignored my flaws, ignored everything, went straight to ego mode and was telling everybody else how the best way to live their own life because, who am I? But I feel like that's where that authoritative coach position comes into play, is telling everybody what's best for them. And then after the stroke, I released all that junk, all that garbage. I'm nothing more than a guide. I am just a pathway to open a gate for you to walk through. That's all I am. And anyone who sees themselves as more than that is lying to themselves and everyone else.
Mhm.
But it
Yep.
went through phases, right? So I went from unaware to self-aware to hyper self-awareness, which was really judgmental, really hurtful, really, talking in that inner critic voice, which I was so stuck in forever. And then moving into after the stroke, moving into unconditional self-love and compassionate self-awareness, which is where I live today. But again, it's a daily choice. Like, I'm not pretending that if I wake up tomorrow and don't make the conscious decision to step into the tools, into the ways of life that I live today, that I will still be in that state of being. There is no way possible. There's nothing stagnant. We're too much in flow.
Mm.
What I can tell you is today, no matter what the outside chaos of the world is, it doesn't impact my unconditional self-love, my inner peace. I've been homeless with my kids now for almost 7 months. The 25th will be 7 months. I am the most fulfilled and at peace I've ever been. And there's been days where I don't know where I'm going to be that night with my kids. I've had 5 child services cases open against me, which all have closed because I'm transparent, straightforward, and there's many other small issues around my circumstances, but I am just at peace with it all. I have implicit trust and faith in the divine plan. I build my programs. They're out there. They're copyrighted. They're published. They impact every human being that comes across them in one way or another. And when humanity is ready for it, it's going to be there. And that's it. And I just trust that divine timing will align before something catastrophic happens.
Absolutely.
Or if something catastrophic is meant to happen, then that happens and I'll bounce back.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it also looking at when you said home, I mean, what is a home, really? And what I see as a home is a place anywhere in the world where there are people coming together in community and love and compassion. And if that's what you're providing, in this time, then you have a home. Your home is
Percent.
the world. So there's a quote here, and let me know if I'm getting it right. Fear of the future no longer exists when the past has been healed. I think that's a really profound quote, and a lot of people carry that baggage from the past, and specifically in your case, like abuse and trauma and all that other fun stuff, and they pass it in from their past, throw it into their future, and then especially when children are involved, then that burden and backpack
Gets
will weight.
handed down. Here you go.
Yeah, exactly. So what kind of conversations have you had with your kids? And I've had conversations with my kids as well. Knowing that I'm not perfect, but showing up as the best version of who I am and can be, based on my current awareness, consciousness. How are those conversations been with your kids around what they're experiencing and in the world?
Unconditionally is the best answer I can give you. Zero attachment to their experience, knowing that it's their own. Knowing that I got them out of the abusive situation 5 years ago. And now I'm a solo parent to the 3 kids, and they each are on their own healing journey at their own rates. My 15-year-old is still burying some of it, so it's still right below the surface, has moments where it comes out, not reactive to it, really is able to just avoid the world with it and kind of ignores the world. My 12-year-old hits it face on, wants to overcome it. He's like, Dad, see, I'm 12, but by 12, you're already doing hardcore drugs. I'm not doing any of that. I want to face it. That's my 12-year-old. My 7-year-old is facing it at 7. It's coming up. We're talking about it in therapy. They all go to therapy weekly. Again, my oldest avoids it in therapy, ignores emotions, really doesn't talk about that, sticks to the surface level stuff, but also conveys to her therapist that she trusts me implicitly. She doesn't worry about anything. She's like, I know my dad's got us. And she trusts me, I got to say, even more than I do sometimes. Like, John, there's been days that it's 11 o'clock at night. We're still in the car all day, not having a place to go. I'm breaking down into tears. And then somebody reaches out and just sends me $150 out of nowhere without me even asking. It just shows up. And it's, every time that doubt creeps in, I get a little bit less worried about it. I just do. Because when you're living in your soul's purpose and you're living in your aligned passion and aligned way of being, and you're truly making your impact with or without funds, because I don't believe that our impact is correlated to the amount of money, fiscal currency that we have. I do not believe that to any extent of the imagination. I sit in rooms on Clubhouse with anywhere from 20 to 100 people almost every day, and I just drop seeds all day long. And I learn a ton too. I'm open. I know that I'm the student and the teacher all at the exact same time. There's no more of that ego involved. So I'm always looking to observe humanity, observe and understand and learn more. And I think because I'm that way, my kids are really taking that on with life. So the greatest gift I'm trying to give them is to be self-inspired and self-empowered and have self-love and self-worth.
Yeah.
And it's not perfect, right? It's just not, because they have their own trauma that they're healing from, but I'm trying to be the living example for them. And it's the
Yeah.
best I can do. And I was angry this morning. I flipped out this morning. I'm not perfect, and I know that, but I also owned it. I became accountable. I apologized for it. One of the greatest things I learned on this journey is the humility of being accountable to my 7-year-old. Because over time, what happened as I would go and apologize to her and be accountable for how I reacted, and I'm very specific about the words. I don't say you made me react this way. I said I react this way because, and I explain why I react that way. So now it's to the point that there are times where if my 7-year-old reacts, she's going to come to us and be like, I'm sorry, this is why I reacted this way. Not blaming anyone else. And John, she's 7. There's adults around the planet that claim to be master teachers and leaders and all these things that can't do that. We have a president in this country that can't be accountable, but my 7-year-old can do it.
Yeah.
It's remarkable. That to me is remarkable.
Yeah. That was about the time my daughter kind of approached me when I was in that career that wasn't certain, like it wasn't aligned fully. And, she was very wise. I think children are extremely wise and they see things that we lose sometimes as we get up in age. And it's interesting that each one of your children have a different perspective or the same, like, parents birth these children and the same person raised them. And each individual has a different way, I think a genetic makeup or, when they were born, if you study human design, like all sorts of different things that personality traits that help people move through it. But it sounds like you're allowing them to, you're not, like you said, being an authoritative person, like, hey, you got to be a good person. It's like, well, it's probably a good idea. It served me to be a good person. Maybe explore being a good person, So
Well,
I don't think,
I think I take it the other way, and I'm like, it's okay to be a shitty person,
yeah.
but I'm still going to be a good person towards you.
Hmm.
And I think that is how I emulate for them, opposed to telling them not to.
Hmm.
I want them to understand the difference.
Right.
I want them to experience whatever level of blame, shame, and guilt that they put upon themselves,
Hmm.
so that we can go discuss later and they can release it.
Hmm.
Because if they have those tools at that age, they're going to be so much further in life than most of the adult population.
Yeah. Yeah, creating that safe place for them to feel that feeling and then discuss it and not internalize it into their body where it's becoming, stuck energy.
100%.
Yeah. So one of the things you talk about is the idea of inner luminescence and light within us. And one of the things you said before, and this is something I can relate to, is, you know, e- early on in my life, I felt like a lot of anger, right, underneath the surface.
Mhm.
And I always have seen myself as not an angry person, like not a very loving, caring, compassionate. Uh, but there's that like shadow side of like this destroyer of like, hey, like if you go after my family, like it's not going to be a good thing. So those things we push away, right? But in certain circumstances, they could serve you uh, in a very good way. So falling in love with that side of yourself that you push away, instead of it becoming larger and larger and subconsciously controlling your behavior and your life and driving your life. So maybe talk a little bit about that, how we're shining a light or luminescence on not just the good pieces of ourselves, but also those pieces that maybe we're not too proud of.
I think, look, I mean, I'm a human being, right? So I'm still have the whole emotional spectrum. And just because I've evolved and I've grown and I've healed to certain levels, I'm still never done until the day I die. Um, are there days I want to go punch somebody in the face because of how they reacted to me or reacted to my children in a way? 100%. But on a conscious level, I realize that's not an appropriate behavior in the world we live in today. I also realize it's not fair if I am reacting to someone's reaction, right? Odds are is they are unaware of why they're reactive. I'm aware of why I would. So why it's on me to not react. And I don't think we shine a light and say, hey, I'm going to go punch somebody in the face. I think this is a good idea. I think by being aware and being compassionate about it, we don't make new blame, self-blame, self-shame, self-guilt by doing the action, knowing that it's not in our aligned way of being. And it's okay to have a thought. It's just not okay to take the action and violate somebody else. Like, I mean, this is where shine a light on it, become aware of it, own it, be accountable for it, but you don't have to act. It's a choice. There is a split second always to how you want to react to something. I call it the reaction or the response, right? The reaction is that immediate reacting, just jump down your throat reaction. And there's the response where you pause, you digest it, you take a breath, you acknowledge what it was, what it brought up within you, right? Because it's always bringing something up in us. And you choose to be compassionate about it with yourself and with whoever the other person is. Because there is no one that's on your path. There is no one that's at your level. There is no such thing as levels. This is a perpetual journey, which is why I like the term growing forward. There is no, you get to a level and you're done. There is no mastery. There is no any of these things. Like that's ego speaking. I don't worry about the external certifications. I don't worry about any of those things. My life story will blow you away. You can say that I overcome, that I'm resilient, all these words that people have praised me with. You're so strong. No, I'm too stubborn to give up. There's a difference. I'm just not giving up. And I believe in myself that much that I'm going to grow through whatever it takes to get there. And I will. It's just who I am. I don't label it as resilient or strong or courageous. I say I'm too stupid to be courageous. I just don't realize that it might not happen. I don't care. I believe it will. Anybody can tell me whatever they want. That's their perspective. That's why I say it's like a house of cards of perspectives. They're all empty. Until something happens, it's all empty. I read somewhere that if you focus on the past, you get depression or live in regrets. If you focus on the future, you get anxiety or live in this anxious way of being. If you were present, it's the eternal gift. So I just live each moment like it's the only one because it truly is. It is the only one we have.
Yeah. Yeah.
5 minutes from now is not here yet. 5 minutes ago is already gone. I can't do anything. If I mispronounce something, if I look weird because my left eye is still not working right, if like I don't care. I'm wearing my glasses instead of my contacts. I just don't care. I'm perfectly me, exactly the way I am. And it doesn't have to fit for anyone else because I don't care.
Yeah. Yeah. It's about freedom, being free and embracing yourself fully.
It's personal freedom and inner peace.
Mhm.
I don't want to say overarching freedom because I don't think that's a real thing.
Yeah.
Because you look at the financial system that we both worked in for almost a decade, there's no freedom within that. I hate to tell anyone, there's no freedom in owning a house. Oh, I bought a house. I'm free. No, you're not. You pay taxes every month, every year. You have to have insurance every month. You have utilities. You have things that you have to pay. You don't own anything. So stop pretending. 3 days after you're dead, it's all gone. I promise.
Yeah.
Nobody's building this, memorial to you and saying this plot of land is yours forever.
Yeah.
So when I look at it that way, we over rationalize how grand of an experience we have. We're 80 to, let's be crazy. We're from 80 to 200 years, right? Let's say we live to 200. Fantastic. Okay, we're 200 years old. The planet's 4.5 billion years old. What's 200 years? Stop pretending you're that special. While at the same time, we are that special. Because it's 400 trillion to 1 that we'd ever be a human being. And if you do that to the 8.2 billion time, If you do that to the 8.2 billion level, I mean, like, it's beyond im it's not even close to probable. Like, it's completely the opposite. It's improbable. So existence itself is proof of a higher power of some sort. I have no idea what that higher power is. I don't claim to. I just know what it means to me.
Yeah.
And that's all I care about. Like, the rest doesn't matter. You
Yeah.
can pray, you can praise whatever you want, you can worship however you want, you can practice however you want. It's your life. I don't live it. I live mine.
Yeah. There's two situations that come up as you were talking about this is I've worked with a lot of different people over the years and anywhere from people that are homeless. I one time had spoke to somebody just out of the blue and wound up asking him what his life was about, and he wound up crying. And maybe something shifted him that day. Up to guys that are making $1 million a year, and everywhere in between. And the person making $1 million a year was miserable.
Mhm.
The guy, the homeless, was miserable. But I've also talked to people that are somewhere in between and they're absolutely loving their life, regardless of what success has been deemed. Uh, so finding that is the key, and allowing yourself to be you in any situation, whether you're homeless or making $1 billion a year. Like, who is
100%.
the person underlying that? So that's a lot of the work you and I do is getting people connected with the truth of who they are so that regardless of their situation, that they can show up and not beat themselves up, not feel depressed, not get physical symptoms, like all these different things. And the truth is 80% of the world's population is unfulfilled.
Mhm.
So
At least.
some,
At
some
least.
right. Something's up.
I mean, truthfully, I've worked with lots of millionaires and billionaires, truthfully, like transparently, over the course of the last 30 years in many different capacities. I would say that more in that neighborhood are absolutely miserable and unfulfilled than people that are considered poor or homeless,
Mhm.
because at least they understand why they're there. When you're in the capacity to be extremely worldly successful, and I label it that reason for I label it worldly successful for a very important reason. But you don't know your why and you don't know what fills you. You feel so much worse about life. And when you realize you're living life for everyone else, my parents wanted me to be this, so I'm this. So I overachieved. I tried to get attention. I tried to be the best at everything, but I still feel empty inside. It's a sad way to exist, and it's unfortunately what what the world rewards currently. I don't think it always will. I think we're getting close to a major tipping point.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think it's the idea of looking outside yourself for answers, and the difference between that and, stepping inside of yourself and trusting yourself as that guide, you know? So it sounds like guiding people to connect with a true power within themselves is
Mhm.
what your focus is and vision for the world.
Yes, and I do it just like you do it, but I do it in my own perspective way, right? Which is, for me, I was always a habitual overthinker and always beating myself up and really running myself down that path. So the work I created is the tools I use daily and how I stopped the overthinking and became present.
Yeah.
And it's really about rewiring the subconscious. That's where all my energy goes to.
Yeah. How have
And
you
being
found
more self-aware. Yeah,
yeah,
sorry.
how have you found the best way, because 'cause I've dived deep into that as well, subconscious reprogramming it. How have you found is the most effective way to do that?
Repetitious behavior
Mhm.
of the opposite, right? So, and in an aware state. So this is the difference too, right? Because subconscious will run wild when we're unaware. When we're aware, we either choose to be accountable or ignore it. So you need to be aware and be accountable at the same time to yourself, not to anyone else in the world. Because when you're dealing with your subconscious, the rest of the world doesn't matter. No one cares. It's about us. Our world is us. not even my children. It's me. Because if I'm not working on me and I'm not clear with me, then what I'm going to give to them is shit. Just being transparent, right? So if you look at the U-Penn study, which somebody shared with me a while ago, we have 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day in the average human brain, more if you have ADHD and ADD or whatever it is. I don't know what the numbers are, but so we have 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. Up to 95% of them are in our subconscious or unconscious basis, which means we are unaware of those repetitive thoughts on a daily basis. Then they slant 85% of the negative. So if we're living in a space of being unaware, how can you accomplish anything in life? And how can you expect to just magically break your patterns and behaviors with with new habits, with new patterns, with new routines? This is why these things don't work. This is why people give up. So you've got to shift. For me, it was doing it in a way that made sense to me because that's what matters to me, right? I'm selfish. But we build what works for us because we know there aren't others in the world that can relate to it. As long as we're sharing authentic stories, we're telling our journey, then those that can relate to what we grew through will come to us. So the way that I designed the program was you step into awareness first, which I consider extremely dirty at that first phase, because then you see the piece of shit that you really are, right? And if you don't have that objective voice to be like, not your fault. You didn't know, right? Like you need that third party to be like, you're good. Don't worry about it. It happens. We're all shitty. Like it's just what we are as human beings. When you don't know 95% of your thoughts and actions on a daily basis, how can you expect to be a great person? Like you don't even know what you're doing. So you shift through awareness, then you move into acknowledgement phase, which is a deeper understanding of who we are. Then you move into acceptance, which is accepting ourselves and life exactly as it is. And then you move into allowance, which is the fourth phase, which is allowing ourselves to rewrite a new way of being. And throughout these four phases, you're accumulating different exercises and ways to apply them for the rest of your life. It gives you a toolbox around self-awareness and really understanding how to shift into more of an unconditional self-loving state, like self-forgiveness letters, because like I was explaining about the abuse when I was younger, I instigated part of it. So my subconscious naturally held that against myself, also created patterns and behaviors around it. So I had to forgive myself for creating the patterns and the instigation of the abuse. Just because my mother was never accountable, and just because most of my family never believed it, except my father on his deathbed when he had this really deep conversation, he cried, all these different things. Well, we both, but like, you know, just because of that doesn't mean that I didn't blame myself. So I had to get to the root of those things and go to the root issues and forgive myself for the roles I played, because I had to trick the subconscious, right, into rewriting itself, because it will stay stuck. It has no problem staying stuck. So what I like to tell people is if you go from 5% self-aware to 10% self-aware, you just doubled your happiness. You doubled every piece of fulfillment in your life, and that's attainable. I don't care you want to get to 40%. Go for it. Why the heck not? I wouldn't recommend starting out desiring to go there, because the more aware you are, the more limited you are in your circles, the more you start to crave isolation, because you realize how screwed up the systems, the processes, the worldly expectations, the systemic expectations, the parental and genealogy expectations, and all these things that are just thrown on us.
Yeah, it can be an isolating journey for sure. Years ago when I started this whole thing, and a lot of times you're either moving together with people or apart, and then that kind of evolution of your network and the people you surround yourself with changes. But once you're kind of out of that mold, you're able to connect and be with people that are on this journey of growth, and you actually have a lot to talk about. And it's like when you meet a surfer anywhere in the world, there's just this common bond and this common connection where that that person's been held on the ocean by the weight of the ocean, or is dropped in on a wave. Like there's something that happens in your body chemically and emotionally, and there's an imprint. So like energy attracts like energy a lot of times. So um, I love it. So as far as the next, I know you don't like to go too much into the future, but what's in the future for you over the next like year, let's say, of the impact that you want to be creating and how you're creating it?
So I can give my answer, which is I hope I wake up every day until then, right? Because then I'm still here. I look at every day as a gift and a miracle. So for me to project that far out, it's just keep building and impacting souls. That's all I care about. Like the rest of it, I don't care about. Everything else will work itself out. I just want to impact as many souls on a daily basis as I can to reflect back to them of healthier ways of being for themselves. And that's it. Like the rest of it will just become whatever it's meant to become. I don't have those lofty, external, worldly expectations because they don't matter.
Yeah. So
I've had stuff. It didn't work.
100%. So who would be the perfect person to be reaching out to get support from you?
Anyone who has a desire to want to love themselves more, to be more fulfilled, to find inner peace, or to understand why they act the way they act, or react the way they act, I should say. Not act, but react.
Yeah.
Because that's all the subconscious basis, right? Where you're just constantly reacting to the world around you.
Mhm.
And if you go by the ACEs exam, right, which I know you've heard of, right, that childhood trauma exam that they give you at times.
No,
So
I don't remember that.
it's like 10 questions, I think, of 10 different types of childhood trauma.
Mhm.
And they say the extreme is if you have 8 or more, you're likely to be in prison for the rest of your life. So I got stuck at 7, never got my 8th. So apparently that's what kept me out of prison. Um, but it gives you different types of traumas. And they said over 80% of the US adult population has unresolved childhood trauma based on these tests. So the whole world right now is trauma reactive. For anyone who hasn't watched the news like me, I don't watch the news. You can easily see how the whole world's trauma reactive.
Mm.
It's overflow. Let's overload you. Let's numb you. Let's sedate you so you don't react to anything. So you can't even react because you're too overwhelmed in your own reactions.
Yeah,
And it's a very dangerous state that humanity's in right now.
absolutely. So it sounds like, if we're looking at some things that people can take away from this is, that awareness, perspective. Um, what are some things that people can practice like this week that'll help them to become more aware, to forgive themselves, to operate in, pure love and compassion with themselves and others?
So the simplest thing that I can explain to anyone to become even just slightly more aware is spend 3 or 4 minutes every day when you first wake up, write down 5 things that you hate about yourself and 5 things you love about yourself, and do it every day for 3 weeks.
Mm.
Because at the end of 3 weeks, you're gonna have over 100 things that you love about yourself, which is probably more than you thought you ever could think of,
Yeah.
right? And it's become. I really believe that awareness is the more you become aware, the more that you automatically, our mind is so magical. Like it is such a powerful machine.
Yeah.
But if you're staying stagnant in that 85% negative, then if you tell yourself, I want to be 1% better every day, your mind 85% of the time is saying I was 81% worse yesterday. That's just a natural program. What does I don't buy into that stuff? Because I know my mind and my overthinking will extremely go straight to the negative. So if I tell myself I'm 1% better today, it's automatically shifting to I was 1% worse yesterday. So rather than saying, oh, in the course of a year, I'll be this much further ahead, it's saying, well, a year ago, I was this much worse.
Yeah.
So for me, it's really important to stay present. Dedicate that 5 to 10 minutes every morning, write down 5 things each. And then as you're doing that, week 2, you start putting in 5 things you're grateful for. Then week 3, you move into 5 things that you want. And then I think at some point, as you're moving through this process, you're going to realize that you have many of the things you didn't realize you wanted already. And you want it for worldly external reasons, not for your own reasons. So much of the world is, I want that 6-figure a year job. Well, now not anymore. I want that 5 times 6-figure year, right? Because 6 figures doesn't get you a house at these days, right? Like they said, there was 10 states you have to make over 350,000 a year for a family of 4. It's insane.
Yeah.
Um, so like, I mean, we got to start changing some of these phrases. But if you're so focused on that job, but meanwhile your higher power is trying to hand you the lotto numbers, you're never going to receive the lotto numbers because you're so focused on the job. Because we get so hyper focused on what we believe we want, we're not even open to the infinite possibilities that our higher power is trying to show us.
Yeah. Yeah. And surrendering to that is terrifying sometimes. You know?
I've been known not to be given a choice.
Yeah.
So I don't get many choices when it comes to that.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that's very powerful. And I believe, if you're writing those things down in that one column, things you don't like about yourself, eventually those move over into the things you love about yourself, and I think that's the real beauty of that exercise is that, falling in love with all those pieces of yourself so that you're not disintegrated. That if you study parts integration, you can be disintegrated as a human being. So your reintegration process is very powerful. I
Well,
love
I also believe if you're spending 21 days doing this, right? We said 3 weeks of 21 days.
it. Mhm.
Is you're spending 10 days writing down the same 5 things you hate about yourself. By day 11, you're looking at it and you're like, well, I don't know if I hate it anymore because I'm not doing it as much.
Right.
Because now you're becoming aware. So
Mhm.
you get something new to hate yourself about. It's fantastic. But see, the beautiful part is it like triggers. They're the greatest gifts I could ever imagine. And someone told me that a long time ago in my very beginning of my journey. I think one of the shamans, and I'm like, I can't stand you. Like,
Mhm.
what are you talking about? Like, why do I want triggers?
Yeah.
And now, like, I love them
Mhm.
because it shows me what's next, right? And being on this growing forward mentality of perpetual learning, evolving, and growing, it's just beautiful. The breadcrumbs laid out in front of me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's nice when, you get poked and you don't react, I mean,
Yeah.
that's key. And the world is poking us all over the place, it's got all sorts of different distractions, all sorts of different things that are, attempting to do that. And with awareness comes choice, with choice comes happiness and joy and fulfillment, all sorts of different things. And everything else is a story and it's all made up anyway. So we get to choose how we live our life.
100%.
Cool. Well, Michael, it's been absolutely amazing. If someone wants to get a hold of you, how do they actually get a hold of you?
I mean, they can go to LinkedIn. My cell phone number is public there. They can go to Instagram. My cell phone number is public there. I'm the only Michael Padurano on the whole planet, so we're good. There is no other version of me because my grandfather, out of all his siblings, there was only 2 of them that put an R in the last name. I'm the only Michael in that lineage, so we're good. So I'm the only Michael Padurano on the whole damn planet. Easy to find. You can go to Instagram, you can go to LinkedIn. Even though I'm not very active on LinkedIn these days, I do check my direct messaging. My cell phone number is public on it. My cell phone number is public on Instagram. I'll put it on here. I don't care.
Awesome.
Reach out, get in contact, and we'll go from there.
Love it.
I'm open, always open to chat, always open to communicate, support however I can.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, if you guys are in Zerker's Academy, Michael's also a member there. So if you want to connect with him inside the academy, go to zerkers.com and get access to that. So to all my underground warriors, this episode was about going inwards so you can rise outward, heal the past, shine your light, and not fear what's holding your back. So if this is resonating with you, share it, review it, and let's keep elevating together. Until next time, stay relentless.
Thank you very much, Sean. I appreciate it. I really enjoyed it.